what is enlightenment? Have you ever thought about that question? Do you have an idea? How would you express it?
For me, I know truth is all around and it's within me. And with me being human, it's a way to uncover it because I know it's always there, and it's me tuning my frequency to truth and light and knowledge and wisdom to be better and to serve. And so I think I have that just that craving for that connection with all that is.
Mm-hmm. Okay, beautiful.
I just feel like I'm much more aware of what is going on around me, and I just want to keep learning.
Mm-hmm.
I think just like, oh, there's so much out there. I want to keep learning.
Wonderful.
And I want to be a part of it.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. Beautiful. Yeah. Both of those are fantastic. The simplest definition, because, you know, as we're moving towards enlightenment, everything that you guys said absolutely applies. So that's very meaningful and practical. But the definition of full enlightenment, like if somebody wonders, okay, well, how do I know when I'm enlightened? What, like, you know, when I have arrived, so-called, you know, let's say. Of course, if you're thinking, when have I arrived, then you probably haven't arrived. So that's the first thing. But the simplest thing is when the full truth of these statements resonate 100% with you and are absolutely self-evident at all time. And that is, consciousness is Brahman, right? Prajnanam Brahma. This self is Brahman. That's completely obvious to you. This self is Brahman. I am Atma Brahma. Tattvamasi, you are that. I am that, right? Aham Brahmasmi, I am Brahman. Sarvam Kalvidam Brahma. All this is Brahman. So when these statements, the truth of them are just absolutely a self-evident fact, then I would say you're enlightened. So
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead. Sure.
Do we ever really achieve total enlightenment, or it's part of the journey?
We achieve total enlightenment, yes. However, it's not so good to have it, you know, like be super just goal oriented. I mean, they say that a driving desire for liberation is important. So in that sense, it's good to be going for the goal. But at the same time, it's really important to enjoy the journey, as you both expressed. That is actually, if we're not enjoying the journey, then we're going to have a long wait before we can enjoy anything, because the journey is, you know, much of our lives. And so that is important, what you just said, to enjoy each moment, to be here now, to enjoy what is actually so important. In fact, one of the final strokes that the master may give to the aspirant is to have them just relax that desire for enlightenment. Like, you're here. You don't have to keep striving. You're already here. So to have some good value, some good degree of that as we're on the journey, that being here now, enjoying what is, that is so important. That actually is a bit of enlightenment right there. Were you going to say something else, Phil?
I was just saying, I wasn't looking at it so much as a goal, but I'm thinking, I think if we ever think that there's nothing else to learn, then that's not a good thing. It's just like, oh, we're kind of full of ourselves. There's
Right.
always something.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Well, there's an interesting thing in the Yoga Sutras. It talks about paravairagya, supreme detachment. And it talks about that coming when the yogi realizes that even all the infinitude of possible things to know, like unlimited, right? Just like you said, we'll never stop learning, but the infinite number of things we can learn and know in this vast, incomprehensible universe seems small compared to the extent of the self. So when bodhisattva arises and you start to have that, the value of Purusha reflected in Buddhi, then it seems with that the infinite Purusha, then all the knowables seem small compared to that. And so, and as a result of that, you start to get paravairagya, which is supreme detachment. So in any sense, so there's both things. There's an infinite number of knowables, so you can always keep learning. Even after enlightenment, you'll keep learning. But at the same time, you have the infinitude of consciousness. And all this is simply one homogeneous wholeness of consciousness. And that is the predominant experience, next to which no number of knowables can even begin to compare. So you've now got, like Maharishi used to always say, you have the home of all knowledge, right? You have the home of all knowledge. When we have the home of all knowledge, then the knowables appear to be few because you've got the whole home. And the knowables are just like this painting here, this cup and decoration here, and this various thing, those little things, but you have the whole home that is the basis of the whole universe, and into which the whole universe will dissolve, and from which it has arisen time and again throughout the history of all the creations and so on. So that's your very self. So anyway, that, I don't know if that speaks to what you were asking, but both things, you'll always, of course, continue to learn on the level of finite knowledge, but you have the home of all knowledge, that eternal, infinite basis of creation. And so one thing to continue about talking about enlightenment, it's a state of consciousness, like I say, that's self-evidently enlightened. Like if you have that home of all knowledge, there's no questioning that, right? Now, when you first come into that, it may be so different from anything you've experienced before. It may take getting used to it, and so it typically can take some time to get used to it and to adjust and to be fully integrated. But once you're fully integrated, then it's self-evident enlightenment, and it's not subject to argument. Like no one of a different faith or a different philosophy or intellectual understanding could shake that by intellectual argument, because it's just as obvious as, this computer screen before me. It's like, you can't question that. It's there. It simply is. And so when it's not intellectual, and so it can't be conveyed in words, like if it could be conveyed in words, then, it would be lovely. Some master could simply describe it and we would get it, and then we would have it, right? Just like you could talk about something and give knowledge about something, and then people listening understand that. But this is not on the level of intellectual understanding, so it can't be conveyed in words even. It's a level of consciousness, a state of consciousness. So the other thing about it is, that's also self-evident in that state, is that you cannot make a claim on it. It's not your enlightenment. It's not yours. And in fact, you can't really say, I am enlightened, because it's not about the I. It's just the wholeness of life, and that I am not this individual ego, just that is. And so that's all there is that wholeness of life. Now, one other interesting thing about this is that I don't know if you experience in your meditation that there's some things that take place in the head, actually in the brain, right? Do you guys feel that ever? Some sensations in the head going on? Yeah. All right. Especially with these powerful techniques that we have, it is accelerated. Like if you're just doing a simple little mantra meditation, you may feel it once in a while slightly, but over the years, it takes many years. But with all these practices that we have, you'll start to really feel some things happening in the brain. Maharishi used to say, and I refer to him a lot because, of course, he was my first teacher. So I learned so much of all the basics from him, basically. He used to say that the whole structure of the brain has to change. The material of the brain has to become purer and strengthened, and that changes. Even right down to the DNA, there are changes. So it really is something that we can expect, and you actually will feel these sensations in the head. And so when you start to have this wholeness of awareness, one thing that becomes very obvious, and you may already have tastes of this, and that is there's a feeling of wholeness in the brain, like absolute, like the word brainwave coherence really is descriptive of the brain activity that you experience in that state of pure consciousness, in the state of Brahman consciousness, especially just this homogeneous wholeness of awareness that all is that, I am that, everything is that. That is one wholeness, and you can feel that in your head as this absolutely perfect brainwave coherence. So there's that wholeness of awareness without a ripple of activity, without a trace of anything other than that. And it's like this whole world just takes place in a virtual way within that. And that state is a state of like perfect coherence in the brain. Now, even before enlightenment, you may, like, it's very good to meditate in nature sometimes. Do you guys meditate in nature sometimes? Just go outside and in a park or in your backyard or in some beautiful place and meditate. And if it's remote and silent and on that beauty of nature, it's like you can sense that there's that same coherence that underlies everything, that same oneness that underlies everything behind the curtain of appearances. And it's somehow easier to sense that in nature. As you're developing that unity consciousness, you'll feel that first, mostly in nature. And then that's why people, anybody can feel the beauty in nature, enjoy the beauty in nature. It's like they sense that. They may even have experiences of oneness in nature. And that's because it's a very coherent kind of vibration in nature. And so it's easier of access than, say, in a city.